newsletter. So the second strategy is to allow yourself to get bored and do nothing. How do we achieve deep focus by purposefully doing nothing? Sounds like a paradox, right? Chris Bailey explains this phenomenon using this graph. So we're in a hyperstimulated state, constantly jumping between things that grab our attention, but when we allow ourselves to feel boredom, we reduce that stimulation, which in turn expands our attention span, and we return to work feeling more focused. So he claims being bored actually has the same effect as reducing our phone use, lowering that stimulation and improving focus. And we know that when you let your brain rest and wander, we activate something called the default mode network. This is a node pathway in our brain that becomes active when we're at wakeful rest, like when we're daydreaming or spacing out in the shower or just being bored in the car in traffic, which is hard these days because of digital entertainment available 24/7. Research surrounding this is really recent and not fully known, but what we know is there is a dynamic interplay between default mode network that gets activated when we're bored and the executive network, which is involved in focusing and working through tasks. So the idea is to find space in our schedules to activate this default mode network, rediscover boredom, have a disconnection ritual from the digital world, even if it's for a few minutes, lay on the couch and see where your mind goes. You know, Einstein was known for daydreaming and using his daydreams to develop his theories. So doing nothing is actually doing something. This is generally when we find those breakthrough moments. I know I personally come up with the most interesting thoughts when I'm in the shower. Plus it helps reduce our stimulation, so use boredom as a tool to become more focused. Now we come to insanely simple but hardest to practice. Number 3, phone fasting. For many of us, whether we admit it or not, social media and phone use has become a kind of addiction. Breaking this habit and creating a healthy relationship with our devices requires effort. American Psychological Association says when we're sitting in front of a computer, especially when our phone is nearby, we focus on one thing for 40 seconds before we switch to something else. It's because when our phone is in sight, or even when we know it's nearby, we experience something called the anticipatory dopamine. By the way, dopamine is a chemical in our brain that enables us to take action and get motivated. Just seeing your phone or the thought of checking your phone triggers a dopamine response. Like, your brain knows Instagram is just within reach. Classic example of this is walking into a grocery shop, seeing the junk food aisle and thinking, ooh, I might want those crisps. So hide your phone away whilst working or leave it in another room. During my medical school exams, I was so desperate that I used to give my phone to my flatmate Rasila because it's like she's holding me accountable. Putting your phone on airplane mode or do not disturb is also effective because our brain responds to cues. So just seeing an email or notification pop up can spike your dopamine, making it harder to focus. I feel like society just got trained in the last decade that notifications need to be part of our lives, but I personally do not have my notifications on for any social media accounts like Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. In the end, we're all so trained to open these apps by the habits of dopamine that we're unlikely to miss anything important. You're always going to open WhatsApp and Insta DMs that you don't need to be told that it's there. If you just turn everything off, it empowers you. Now you're in control of the timing of your notifications rather than it being in control of you. Fourth, don't attempt to multitask. When you try to multitask, you're not actually doing more than one activity at a time. Instead, your brain rapidly switches focus from one thing to another. This constant switching uses up brain's main energy source, oxygenated glucose, which is basically sugar attached to oxygen, and it's the exact thing your brain needs to stay focused. Momentum. When you first start training the skill, you might prefer using Pomodoro technique, so 20-minute work, then 10-minute break. But as you progress, you can increase the time you work consistently to 30 minutes, then 40 minutes, and eventually hours once you master